Hey, Jim.
Yeah, Jason?
When was the last time you spent the night in a graveyard?
October 2012?
You and me, buddy. We're going to hell together.
Every day, Jason.
Split Tube Media and the Cinesthesia podcast present a special daily October podcast. Hell to the king.
King movie, a Stephen King movie. King movie, a Stephen King movie. King movie, a Stephen King movie.
I have done my best to scare the shit out of you guys.
Jim, it's day... What day is it?
Say any number, who cares? 93?
It's day 42 of whatever this is.
More like day
this thing we're doing. It is day 15. We're in the third week.
That's a shade, just not halfway. That's not halfway.
It's like almost halfway.
It's almost halfway.
We're beginning the third week here.
While you're sleeping tonight, we'll be halfway done.
We're beginning the third week here on Hell to the King. And we watched The Graveyard Shift.
Because it's halfway through the month, Jason, if all of our listeners sleep with a Stephen King book underneath their pillow, a very gruesome fairy will take it. They'll give them half the cover price.
That's a pretty good deal. There are a lot of those books flying around.
Yeah.
All right. Before we even talk about this, I just have to ask you.
Yeah.
What did you like this movie?
So there are a few tweaks I would make, Jason.
Yeah,
but
I would too.
Overwhelmingly, I thought this movie was great.
Oh God, thank God. I did too. I was really worried we were going to have another Cat's Eye situation. Or I roll up being like, Jim, you were right. These movies are great. And you were like, it sucked.
You were right. They're all terrible.
No, this movie was great.
This movie was this is one I hadn't... I thought, Jason, that Graveyard Shift was the name of a book of short stories. I had no idea what this was. I had no idea going into this movie.
You should not feel... you probably don't. But you should not feel bad about that confusion because it is a short story in a book of short stories called Night Shift.
Oh, see?
So
okay.
It is built to be confusing.
Yeah. He got me.
Oh, the tricky king. No, I was so... I don't... We've really... We've had some decent movies, and we've had some fun movies, and we've had a lot of movies that are none of those things.
Yes.
And I've just felt so in the wilderness, and just watching this movie, I just felt my soul becoming buoyant.
This movie, as much as... I feel like most of these movies as much as I thought they were all going to be good at the beginning of the month, when I begin these movies, for the most part, I feel like I have a general trajectory for them, and for the most part, they are near it. And I think that Cujo was the first one to really throw me, because I assumed because of its cultural impact that it was going to blow me away, and it was just so terrible. And this movie is the exact counterpoint. It's the yang, I don't know, whichever one makes you happy. Because this one, I started it. Yeah, this is Andrew Yang. It gave me $1,000, Jason. It's this movie. I started it with no expectations, and it just kept. It was like it was grabbing my cheeks and pinching them like an aunt, but I liked it.
I started this movie with like negative expectations. This actually, for some reason, I don't know why, because I didn't know anything about the movie, but the poster to this movie was fixated in my mind as like the quintessential example of what I assumed we were going to find, which is like bargain basement bullshit chiller thrillers. And like for some reason this was in my mind of like that's just gonna be this worthless movie. So much so that I almost didn't watch it because I couldn't find a copy, and for a while the only copy I could find was dubbed in Polish.
Amazing.
And so I almost just watched that, but then I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. And maybe I just won't watch this movie, and I'll let Jim do the talking, but I'm so glad I went and found the movie.
Me too, man. I mean, because here's why, Jason. Because if I had watched it and told you about it, I would have been all glowy gushy, and you would have been like, shut up.
Yeah, I would have been like, I don't believe you.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way.
This sounds
I just looked up
terrible.
the poster, and you're right. It does. It looks like a dime store. It looks like it's going to be an okay B movie, maybe.
Yeah. But like now that I have seen the movie, I love the poster. I think it's great.
Yeah. Retroactively.
But at the time, it just stuck in my head. Anyway, throwing that aside, maybe it's just having done like 15 hours of talking about it. But like this just felt like such a breath of fresh air. Yes. Ironically, because the entire thing takes place in a musty basement.
Yeah, where they specifically are not breathing fresh air.
The story to the movie, very simple. We can just get that out of the way, so we can move on and talk about. I don't even know where else to start because there's so many things I want to talk about for this movie.
Sure, yeah.
But
lay out the baseline.
There's an old textile mill in Stephen Kingtown, Maine, and the workers in that mill are being terrorized by a cruel foreman with a terrible Maine accent, played by
the worst we've heard.
The worst.
One of the most ambitious, also definitely the worst.
Most of these movies take place at least Maine adjacent, if not directly in Maine, and yet most actors, with the notable exception of Fred Gwynne from Pet Sematary, are sweet Fred Gwynne, who kills that Maine accent. Most actors know better than to try a Maine accent. Stephen Mocht, who I actually think is quite a good actor, and whose performance in this movie I love.
I would say this movie has no bad performance. Except maybe the main character.
I would say yes. The main character is he's a little bit just Dirk chest meat. He's a little bland McHero face. But with the possible exception of him, strong performances all around. Yes. Stephen Mocht, good actor. I think his hubris got the best of him.
Accent.
Because I am somewhat convinced he's a guy. He was like, Jim, for half the movie, I thought he was Eastern European because he was trying to do this Maine accent, and I thought that it was just the way he talked.
It is unclear where not having seen him in other things, I would believe you if you told me he is from another country and was struggling very hard to just sound American.
Right, but so now that I know that Stephen Mocht was born in Philadelphia and sounded like that in this movie.
Okay,
It's here's what I'm saying. I now believe Tommy Wiseau when he says that he's American because they sound the same.
It's true. It's the same sort of yelly, slurred. It's like they just can't quite fit words inside of their cheeks.
What you're doing now? He's like doesn't no. So Stephen Mocht was, I think, classically trained, like PhD in acting in Britain, born in Philadelphia, and then coming into this movie, I think he just took it on himself of like, I have to do the Maine accent. And nobody else in the movie is even trying. And he's trying hard, and it becomes the strangest sound that a human being can make.
Yes. His character is so... No, I mean, okay, none of the characters in this movie aren't heightened. But his character is... He could be from another plane. He could be an alien who invaded and ended up in charge of a textile mill in Maine and is just doing his best.
Well, I was convinced for a long time of the movie, actually, that he was supernatural in some way. And maybe we can come back to that, because that's part of... I love this movie, but I have two specific notes of what I would change to change it from a great hidden gem to a stone-cold classic.
Is one of them to make it 95 minutes of just Brad Dourif launching rats out of a building through a tube into a river? I would watch that to no end. Just yelling at them, stomping around, cussing at rats.
That's the parallel project that we pitched to the Guggenheim. to have as an installation.
Yes. It would be like if Matthew Barney made Good Things.
Yeah.
Ooh, eat it, Barney.
Brad Dourif's in this movie. The great Brad Dourif.
And he just stomps all over it.
Oh my god.
He just won't stop the whole movie. And he has a tiny little adorable mean pet dog.
Who hunts rats with him.
Yes.
So that actually, I'll now finish the short synopsis.
Sorry, you were doing it.
Don't apologize to me. I took us off the rails. I'll bring us back. The workers at the textile mill, terrorized by cruel foreman, and the textile mill has a real rat problem. It is full of rats.
Full of rats.
And workers are pulled in random order or based on whether the foreman likes them that week or not to do graveyard shift work, cleaning up and taking care of rats. And people start disappearing.
Jason, would you say it was graveyard shift work, or would you say it's graveyard shift?
It's graveyard shift work. People start disappearing. Pretty sure there's some sort of rat-related monster, and it's a pretty straight line from there to all the main characters all the characters that we've met and known going into the basement, and then horror happens.
There's an interesting... So for the first, 30 minutes of the movie, the foreman, Stephen Mott, is... everyone hates him, and they all agree that he's a terrible dude. But he seems... Aside from being kind of abrasive, he seems just kind of normal boss, irritating. He's a little sleazy with the women, for sure.
Yeah.
But aside from that, he's just kind of grumpy.
It's established that he's
asking them to work overnight,
like,
but he's paying them double time, Jason, to work overnight. And he's asking them, he's not forcing them to. He's asking them if they want to, and they all are saying yes. So capitalism is sort of the villain.
True. I also think it's strongly implied that if they say no, they're fired. Because there's the whole thing of like, if your name's on the list, you're going down there, and that's why the one woman who slept with him to get a cushy office job is freaked out because he's making her do the graveyard shift.
Okay.
So I think I think because the other thing about this movie, or one of the many things about this movie that I really like, is that it's incredibly pro-union, because they also make it clear that a number of the workers, including my absolute favorite character in the whole film, Jane, played by Kelly Wolfe, are only still there because the union has their back.
Yes.
And won't buckle to Warwick.
Yeah, Warwick.
The foreman.
Yeah. I agree that Jane is the best character, but I think in terms of my reactions to their screen time as a ratio, the most potent character is chubby guy who shoots rats with a fire hose
while screaming.
While screaming, yeah. Chubby man who goes completely insane on shooting rats with a fire hose. He just... Oh, and then eventually starts spraying that other guy in the feet.
Yeah, which made me really uncomfortable because I wasn't sure if the movie...
If it was supposed to be a race thing?
Well, because he's literally spraying a black man with a fire hose, and that's pretty fraught imagery, and I wasn't sure if the movie knew what it was doing. Yeah, but then luckily it just turns right away from it.
Like he's just being a weirdo and spraying a guy in the feet because he's gone rat crazy. Yeah. But it definitely feels heavier than it seems like it's supposed to. Yeah. Also, Jason, that scene is, if I remember correctly, is the scene where everyone's so furious that they have to go in and work overnight, and presumably they're also working their day shift, right? So they're all exhausted and mad, and they're staying there. And they hate Warwick for making them do it. And in the middle of that altercation, someone mentions Warwick, the warden's name, and he just pops up. He's just also down there. He's also he's like, you gotta stay in the basement overnight, and then he's also just hanging out in a corner somewhere watching them. It's crazy, Jason.
Well, because presumably he's having them do graveyard shift work so that he doesn't have to do graveyard shift work, but then he's just there 24/7 no matter what.
Yeah, just floating around wherever, and also he could be upstairs in his office, but he's not.
No.
He's just down in the basement with him, standing in the filth, not helping. or doing anything.
Well, and so this is part of, too, like, for a while he seems like just a normal mean boss, but then after a while it seems like he has some sort of supernatural connection to whatever it is that's eating people in the building.
Sure. It seems at least like he has some knowledge.
Right. And of
there being more than just a bunch of rats.
But it never totally comes together in terms of ever making clear what he knew or when he knew it.
They don't clarify. But he does, I mean, when they find the hatch to where the Rat King thing lives, he's clearly doesn't want to go down there because he knows there's something down there. And then when he does go down there, he goes full Schwarzenegger Predator Commando. You know, he it seems like he knows, he's prepared. He's so hesitant to go down there, and then once he agrees, it seems like he's like, okay, this is where I will die.
Right.
And I'm going to take this thing with me.
But at a certain point in time, so Brad Dourif is an insane rat exterminator who, if I was understanding his monologue correctly, became a rat exterminator because of his experiences in Vietnam, in which he saw the Viet Cong feed other soldiers to rats. So now,
living people.
Now he lives out his trauma.
He hates rats so
lives
much.
Out his trauma just digging into the bottoms of buildings and killing rats with his adorable dog.
Yeah.
At a certain point, Warwick has him in his office, and he decides that he has to kill him.
Yeah. Yes.
For no
discernible reason.
I can't figure out why.
Because he's also, Brad Dourif, it's not like he's like around and he's going to find a secret. Brad Dourif has done his job and it wants to leave.
It doesn't care about anything else. But then the way...
he's ready to go.
So that part is a little bit inscrutable. But then the way that Warwick kills him is he makes him... He tells him that the rat nest is in the graveyard. And he basically blackmails him into doing one more night of extermination work in the graveyard. The graveyard that is inexplicably just right outside the window of the mill in a beautifully...
directly next door.
The way that set is constructed.
Warwick overlooks from his office.
Well, and that's the thing. He's just watching him from his office as he's walking around this graveyard.
Yeah.
And then... How does it... The little dog that Dourif has smells something and runs into a crypt. And then Dourif follows him. And then the stone coffin in the crypt just tilts and slides and crushes him.
Yeah, it just eats.
But you don't see any creature doing it. You don't get the sense of anything happening, and it's completely unclear how Warwick could have known that would happen. But it seems very clear that he did know it would happen. That he knows it is happening.
It to happen,
which is why I thought he had some sort of weird supernatural connection.
Yes, right, because either he's psychically pushing that building onto
He's not
the
a psychic, Jim.
or he knows that there's a monster in the crypt that wants to eat a guy. It feels like there is some meat there that then just isn't.
Yeah.
Or it is, and we just don't see it.
Yeah.
Right?
I have two major changes I would make to the film that, if instituted, would have made this film an instant classic. But you go first.
So the main character in this movie, Jason, is just a dude who rolls into town and then gets a job and blah blah. Who cares?
Yes.
It feels like a stark counterpoint to everyone else. It feels like everyone else in this movie is fully flavored. They're just bags of spicy sauce sloshing around, making impressions, and he's just a blank slab of pork that has nothing to offer.
Yeah, it feels like there's a whole town written, like a whole story about a town written, and then this guy is just sort of layered on top because whoever's making the movie decides they need a hero.
Yeah. Yes. And it feels like I would rather... I mean, for me, I feel like Warwick... for the last third of the movie almost has a hero turn. You know, he could almost be more of a main character, but he's not really.
Well, because he has the Johnny and Predator scene, right, where he just exposes himself to the monster. We are going to hell together.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like it felt like it sort of runs a line between almost being a Predator movie and almost being an Alien movie and just not quite hitting that. And so for me, I feel like I almost want a version of this movie, and I don't want to replace this. A lot of times when I'm rewriting a movie in my brain, I'm like, I could just swap out to an alternate universe where this is how this movie is. But it's when I want this movie to still be here. If I were doing a remake, I think I would have them entering... I mean, in any other movie, I would have them entering the floor to where the monster is 10 minutes in. But in this, I would push it... I'd give them half an hour to have more Brad Dourif wacky antics above ground.
Well, and all the rest of the supporting actors. Like, every supporting actor has...
Hose guy. I need hose guy. I need...
Or, like, wacky bit guy. Like, they all have really specific choices they're making as characters that give them a lot of flavor, and I love all of them.
Yeah, agreed. So normally I'm like, get rid of the first act, compress it, but I would let the first act kind of linger in this a little bit because it's such a delightful world. But for me, the action sort of really starts clicking along once they get underground. And so if I were doing a version of this chase, it would be, first of all, who cares about the main guy? He can be there, whatever. But I want Brad Dourif and Jane and Hose Guy and Warwick, maybe someone else, but those are the important ones, to descend into the underground, and then I want 90 minutes of hot, sweaty monster hunt. I want it to be like an Alien,
or more like Aliens.
They get in there, Alien, yeah, sure, but I'm fine with there only being one big monster, right? I like, they're going down there chasing the rats, and they're trying to figure it out, and then there's the giant creature, and they're tracking it down, and Warwick gets to cover himself like he does. He gets to smear mud on his face and scream, and and then at the end, a couple of them get out, and Brad Dourif is buried underground to reemerge in the sequel. And that's for me. That's the best version of the movie.
Would love that version. I would watch it many, many times.
Thank you.
Here's what I would do, and it's based on what at first I thought the movie was doing, but then it wasn't.
Okay. Yes.
The monster in this movie is a giant rat bat, essentially.
Yeah, it seems like it's a giant rat, right? And then it's like, well, I got wings!
Yeah, it's like some kind of giant rat bat thing. And it rat bats around and it eats people. Yeah. And it's a good monster. I like the monster. I like the way they introduce the monster. I like the way that the monster's shot. Like, obliquely, you don't see too much, but you see just enough to be fun. And then when you finally do see it, the creature stuff is really well done.
Yeah.
But I thought, and maybe it's partially because I spent half the movie thinking Stephen Mock was doing an Eastern European accent. But it's also definitely because it felt like there was some lurking evil controlling things, or that Stephen Mock was in league with. I had a reverse Salem's Lot on this movie. I spent a lot of it thinking it was going to end up being a Dracula movie.
Sure.
I thought...
That's...
Yeah. And especially when the way he kills Brad Dourif...
That's a much stronger read on this movie than this movie has in itself.
So, it makes a lot more sense if Warwick is like a Renfield-type guy who's being controlled by a Dracula. Or at least is being, influenced by a Dracula. Like, it makes sense why you kill Brad Dourif with a graveyard instead of with any other weapon. And why he keeps sending people down there, and it would just kind of make it all
why he's even drawn to run the mill in the first place.
I don't need things. You know this about me. I don't need things to really make sense. I don't want careful explanations of stuff. As we've said more than once on this podcast, explanations are for nerds.
Yeah, agreed.
But thematically, tonally, it would make it so much more cohesive to have it be some sort of Nosferatu Dracula bat creature.
Yes. Even just they're in a textile mill from the mid 1800s. It's just one piece of flavor that makes all of the things that are already in the movie hang together.
Because it feels like that's what the movie wants to do already. When they finally get underground and they find its lair,
a giant bat,
and there's just those piles of bones everywhere, and it's this beautiful matte painting where you're just seeing this like cascading mountain of bones, and you see the mill on the hill, and it's like an old dark house, and it's just oh my god, it has all of the gothic tonality to it, but it doesn't pull the trigger story wise, and I just wanted a little bit more there.
So here's the other change I would make, and this is the one that would have made this a stone cold classic. It would have rescued this movie from the terrible reviews and bad box office that it got. It would have led Ralph Singleton on to a long career of making movies that I probably wouldn't care as much about as I care about this one. Flip the main character, what's his name? John, whatever his name is, and Jane. Make Jane, the tough lady, the main character. Make her the one who makes it out at the end.
You can still have the main character. You can still have him roll into town and have the scene where she looks him up and down. It's like, oh, he looks good. I'd like to have his boots next to my bed. But you have it from her perspective, where then that fixes his character too.
The movie is trying to have its hero be this dude and have his love interest be interesting because she's his love interest, but the script and the actor, Kelly Wolf, are just too interested in that character. They make that character too interesting and too awesome.
And normally in these movies, you have the main character is a man who gets to be interesting, and then there's a love interest who's just a pretty face. But in this movie, you have the main character who's not interesting, and his love interest who is the most interesting person in the movie. So just make her the main character and make him her eye candy, and all of a sudden, all of the movie's structural problems are fixed.
Fully on board.
And then if you flip it and you have everything from her perspective, then also that's going to give, beef slab chin meat the more of a character, or more of a aura of character, because you're going to see him through her eyes, as opposed to them trying to make you see her through his eyes. But who gives a shit, because she's way more interesting. And she likes him because she likes him because he's new, because he's clean, because he's good. And then we watch through her eyes as he does these sort of heroic things that she also supports and builds him up to and gives him the courage to do, because she's been fighting this fight since way before he got here. And then at the end, instead of having Warwick kill her and having bland chin face escape, you have Warwick kill the dude that she loves.
For her for her tragedy, and then she's the one who claws her way out and survives and kills the rat creature, and then she's around for your Aliens type sequels, because then there's going to be more rat creatures down there.
And I think that's part of what was pushing me more in the Alien direction, is that
she's like a Ripley.
She could be the leading character in this movie, and she has the charm, and she seems like she could be. In the sequels, she's gonna graveyard shift, double overtime. She's the one who's gonna lead a team back into the pits to get revenge for losing the love of her life. Including Hose Guy, who is the only other survivor, but who's been irrevocably damaged mentally. And then they go down into the caves and find Brad Dourif still sweating.
Yeah, who's just living there with
the three of them plus
a piece of gravestone stuck in his head, but killing rats everywhere you can. So those are the two things. You make it a Dracula story, and you make Jane the main character, and who fights all the way to the end. And you do those two things, you have a classic that is still talked about to this day.
And also Kelly Wolf's career, because she's still working, but she's not working that much. And it when you look at her IMDb, it really bummed me out, because I went to look her up, because I'm like, who is this woman? Why have I never seen her before? She's amazing. I am in love with her. She's just doing all kinds of work, and she's got kind of a drip drab medium little IMDb.
It's possible that she made choices along the way and didn't pursue the kind of career that maybe I think she should have had, but she has not had the kind of career I think she should have had.
In that she's not famous.
She's not famous. She's not she doesn't have a huge list of great credits. She has consistently worked sometimes.
All right.
But in this movie, Jim, she's
I
want an oral history of the making of this movie. And 100%. We're not going to make it unless I go make it, and I don't have time to do that. What I really want to know, I want to know the story behind Ralph Singleton, the director. because this is his only movie that he's directed. Yeah,
really?
This is it. It's a solo bolo.
That's no.
And it's one of those. It's like Return to Oz.
I have to put it on a list. My Return to Oz list.
I have that list too.
It's that and Pumpkinhead.
But he was. I'm going to pull it up now because I don't want to get it wrong. He was an assistant director and like a line producer, production manager for a long time, and he worked. I'm going to read you some of his credits right now, Jim.
Okay, please.
Assistant director on Death Wish.
Okay.
Second assistant director on Taxi Driver. Second assistant director on Network. These are just the cherry pickings. Like, he had other things in between this. Unit production manager for 9 episodes of Kojak.
What?
Unit production manager for another 48 Hours.
Okay.
And Last Man Standing, both Walter Hill movies.
Yeah. He's worked with everyone who matters.
He also, I was trying to Google him a little bit. I'm pretty sure he's the same Ralph S. Singleton that has a line of instructional books on like how to schedule your movie shoot, how to budget your movie, how to do. There's all of these, production instruction
UPM tasks.
I feel like I need to get all of them because based on this movie and that credits list, he has so much wisdom to give us.
Oh, for sure. Also, he deserves your $72.
Yeah, if he's even alive, I don't know. But so...
He better be, because otherwise your oral history is going to be missing a crucial voice. Is it cheating if you're doing an oral history to use a medium or Ouija board to talk to a dead guy?
I'm going to say in this instance, no.
Great, okay.
Yeah, it's probably incomplete if you didn't do that.
Yeah, at least try. At least try to talk to his spirit.
We're never going to get it because I feel like this movie is way too minor. But I like the only way we're going to get it is if I do it myself.
Jason, imagine if it hadn't been. What? Why? That's what I. Having watched the movie, I was confused why this isn't one of the ones that I hear about or have heard about or was super hip to in any way. Graveyard Shift isn't. Or wasn't until today, which is stupid. Everyone should watch this movie.
I think it came out. It must have came. I feel like it came out at a point in time of like real Stephen King saturation, and it's also it's the kind of like grimy, gritty, scrappy little horror movie that doesn't get the kind of love that it deserves. Although I don't know why it hasn't been rediscovered. There's so much more given to this movie than needed to be given. It's one of those movies when I say I have story notes or like I have things that I would change, it's not how it normally would be where I'm, watching a movie and going like, oh, that's too bad. It could have been good. Here's what I would do. This is just abject love. This is me coming to this movie and bringing this movie a corsage and saying, I think this would look lovely on you and I'd be honored to place it.
Yeah. It is... Don't read any of those tweaks as this not being a phenomenon.
And it's not just like fun and sort of inventively, excitedly written and acted. It looks really good. I don't know who shot it. I forgot to look that up, but it the cinematography and the production design on this, like all of the sets, like the mill is so well constructed to look, mildewy and weird, and like it's basically going to collapse at any moment. And like what we talked about before, where there's just a graveyard next to it, like that's not a complaint. I think that's great. No. And the way the graveyard looks and the way it's overlooking the graveyard, it's all wonderful.
If you were an OSHA inspector and you went to watch this film, you would have to leave.
You would have a panic attack.
Yeah. This is so far the has had the best punching above its weight.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Of all the movies
this is what I wanted to do this series for. Was to find a movie like this.
Graveyard.
Like we're done. We have to do the rest of it, but we're done. We've done it.
Do we?
We've gotten.
Wait. Do we?
Yeah, Jim, because we have to earn this. This is a test of our character. We've gotten the treasure, but now we have to show that we deserve it. It's like the end of the trip.
All right, we have to make the trek back. With
exactly, we got to go back up the story circle. Jim, this movie gives me hope. Not necessarily that we're going to see another good movie, but just that we can survive it. We just have to keep the energy of this movie in our hearts as we go forward.
Yeah, we do. We need to ride the graveyard shift to the end. I came into this. Last night had a half thought where I was like, I'm going to make a joke about how they're not episodes, they're schlepisodes. But I couldn't. I couldn't do it today. I mean, I could have just saved it for tomorrow.
Yeah,
I guess.
I'm sure tomorrow will be miserable.
But now I've fired it into the atmosphere. It's gone. This was great. This is the most fun I've had watching a Stephen King movie.
It's true. It's true.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to drift on this one. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Did you say Hell to the King at any point?
I don't
in this
know.
episode?
Did I?
Show's over. Yeah.
So warm, so juicy.
Damn!
The Graveyard Shift. Hell to the King is a special presentation of the Cinesthesia podcast, produced by Iguanadonald Studios, and distributed by Split Tooth Media. Music by Loyalty Freak. Hell to the King is recorded.
You got a problem? I ain't got a problem. You got a problem?
I ain't got a problem.
What's your problem, boy? The Graveyard Shift.
No problem.
The Graveyard Shift.
No problem.
Come on, take a break.
Somebody call break.
Break's over.
Come on, take a break.
Don't piss me off.
Break's over.
You better be punching out your time card.
Come on, take a break.
Break's over. Break's over.
The Graveyard Shift. When's the last time you've been to a graveyard? The Graveyard Shift. When's the last time?
He said he wanted to help.
So much for your breeding groundhog.
You were hungry. Rat.
Johnny's on hold tonight,
Not damn exterminators.
so don't throw come and meet my
Very funny. I'm laughing my ass off.
Rats.
No thanks.
Mike.
No thanks. Rat. No thanks. Get that up alive.
On in.
That's a rat.
John first.
Yeah.
And I like your style.
Yeah.
The Graveyard Shift. Can't be more than an instant animal right now. The Graveyard Shift.
Get that up alive.
The Graveyard Shift.
Yeah.
Ever work with a pickup?
Yeah.
The Graveyard Shift.
Still depends on that machine.
The Graveyard Shift.
I say we turn around right now. I knew it. I knew this is the way out.
Johnny's on here tonight.
What?
Rat.
Damn! Damn!
Show. The Graveyard Shift. The Graveyard Shift.